Welcome to the second episode of the Young Justice Season 5 newsletter. This is where we're going to track all the Young Justice news, what's going on with the creators, and what the latest on a potential Season 5 for our favorite animated series is. So hopefully you're ready to get whelmed because it's time to get on our way. Now, before we do that, though, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and ring that bell for all the updates. Also, we are your place for Young Justice news. We do one of these updates about every 2 weeks, as well as one episode of Young Justice Explained each month. You'll be hard-pressed to find any place online that gives you more Young Justice content than here, and we'll make sure you know everything that's going on at Mount Justice. Well, glad to have you guys back. This is going to be our second Young Justice Season 5 newsletter. We get lots of little tidbits of news here and there, and I didn't feel like they deserved an individual video, but maybe a bi-weekly series where we break down the latest news and what's going on is a better place to get us all together to talk about our favorite show. This week we have some more updates from Greg Wisman and artist Chris Jones, some big news from Netflix that could be great news for Young Justice, and a pretty important date in Young Justice history. Let's start off with the dates. Now, first and foremost, we want to wish Superboy voice actor Nolan North happy birthday. His birthday was last week on October the 31st, and his portrayal of Superboy in the series has been something fans have loved from day one, and if you had the opportunity to meet the guy, you know how great he is and how much he deserves that happy birthday. Now, in the last week, we had a pretty big date in Young Justice history, and that would be November the 6th, because that day, a family broke. This was actually one of Young Justice's most emotional moments when Zatanna lost her dad. Now, we all know the happy-ish ending here for Zatara and Zatanna, but this moment early on in Season 1 was the first time that Greg Wisman and team really gave us an idea of how serious the tone of this show was going to be. If you remember correctly, during the fight against Clarion on Roanoke Island, in the episode Misplaced, which was Season 1, Episode 19, Zatanna had to don the Helmet of Fate to fight Clarion, but after the battle, the Lord of Order wanted to keep her so he could maintain his presence on the Prime Material Plane. Now at this point, Zatara offered himself to take up the role of Dr. Fate to save his daughter from being in the service of Naboo. Now, many of you know by Season 4 this finally changed, but for about 5 years, Naboo had an agreement with Zatanna that he could remove the helmet for 1 hour each year, and this would allow her and her father to spend a little time together. It is a pretty classic moment in Young Justice history, and something that I think is important because, as many of you know, the show has many serious twists and turns, and this was one of those early indicators that serious things could happen to multiple characters. Season 4 saw this whole drama resolve itself. I suspect in Season 5, the Helmet of Naboo and the sharing of the mantle that was established in Season 4 could be a major story element. Now, speaking of Season 5, what kind of Season 5 news have we been getting? And well, although we're still being teased, I do see some positive momentum. Did you see the big Netflix DC hookup? Well, if you weren't paying attention, a deluge of DC movies from HBO Max have made their way over to Netflix. And I don't mean a few. Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 1984, The Suicide Squad, Shazam, The Batman, DC League of Super Pets, and Black Adam all made their way onto the platform. Now, this is obviously good news because it shows that the relationship between Warner Bros. And Netflix is only getting better, and it also demonstrates Warner Bros.' willingness to farm out some of their projects. Now, obviously, these are all live-action projects, but you know Netflix is obviously eyeing other stuff over on the platform. If you remember correctly, Young Justice actually got its rebirth on Netflix last time for Season 3. Now, it didn't air on Season 3, but that era of binge Young Justice and all the hype on social media surrounding the show, well, the show was streaming on Netflix when that happened, and quite honestly, they benefited from that campaign. This is really where the movement was originated, and that's something that can't be overstated. Now, Season 3 and Season 4 have never aired on Netflix, and as vocal as the fan base is, I think this is the time to double down and start pressing them because they could very easily push Season 3 and then Season 4 over to the platform, all while funding Greg and team to work on a potential Season 5. We know Warner Bros. Is expanding that relationship with some of these people, and this is probably some of the best news we can have short of an announcement, and it makes me feel pretty optimistic for the show. And this brings us to Greg Wisman and the rest of his team. Now, if you're a fan of the show, you have to watch Greg's social media pretty closely, because he really does give us a lot of clues. But in the last week or two, he's still posting basically a ton of Gargoyles material. He seems to be a man on a mission. Now, this is nothing to worry about because it's how it goes. Greg's a creator, and as the stuff moves into circulation, he's going to be promoting what is coming out. He has continued his character post, which is meant to detail literally every character in the Young Justice universe that's ever appeared. And I personally believe this is done to keep the series alive and keep attention on the project. He still answers a lot of questions about Young Justice, but no official news directly from Greg. We did hear some interesting tidbits from Chris Jones, who was on the con circuit, but nothing from Greg as of yet. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Christopher Jones, he actually drew the Young Justice comics leading us all the way up to the current Target series. Now, recently he attended New York Comic Con, and he got a ton of attention for his comments. So I thought we could talk about some of them because this was really weird, because pretty much everything that he said was stuff that I would refer to as old news or stuff most of us fans already knew. Now, he did give us some pretty interesting details, and that does dive a little into what could happen in Season 5. For those that don't know, Greg Wisman and Brandon Vietti have an infamous index card system that they use to develop the show. This is where they write down stuff for their characters and parts of the show, organize and move the storylines around, and help them set up the bigger story arcs that flow throughout the whole season. It's kind of old school perfect, because as a person who used to develop RPG games for fun, index cards are absolutely perfect for tracking stories, and I totally see how this would work. Chris made it pretty clear these card systems in their stories have the story planned out for the past, the current, and the future. And although he wouldn't reveal future details, he made it pretty clear there is a direction and Greg already knows where this is going. Now, it should be pretty obvious to most of us with the season finale last year going into Season 5 and Darkseid finally becoming more of the primary villain for the series. But Chris wouldn't give us any details on that, and for right now we're going to have to take what we can get, but I did find it to be an interesting little tidbit. Now, the artist did have two interesting comments about Season 5 and whether it could be renewed. The first comment led us to believe it could be a little bit of time before we could see the series. He said, "Like everyone else, I would most love for the TV series to be renewed for Season 5 and beyond. But if the green light came tomorrow, new episodes are at least a year and a half away due to the realities of animation production." Now, he did go on to encourage those, if you want to see more Young Justice, to support the comic, because in that same conversation he said, "So in the short term, more comics are the best option for telling more stories with these characters in this continuity. And after massive viewership numbers, the best way to demonstrate the demand for more of the TV show would be an ongoing interest in spin-off media like the comic." Now, that has always been the plan we've pushed here. It's pretty simple. If we want Season 5, we need to make sure WB and whoever picks up the show sees the monetary value. And ongoing interest in things like the comics is exactly the way to do that. If you're interested in any of the books, check out all the links we have down below. We do make a little bit of money from Amazon, but it's just pennies, and it is really the best way to get a new season of Young Justice. I also found it interesting that the interview got so much attention. One of the ways to gauge interest in a topic is to look and see how much coverage it's actually getting, and a lot of outlets dove on this Young Justice story from him. This suggests to me that we are not the only ones who know there should be a Season 5, there needs to be a Season 5, and HBO, Warner Brothers Discovery, or James Gunn himself need to make this happen. People pounced on the story, and that is an absolute good thing for us fans of Young Justice. Now, like I said, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and also try to join our Facebook group. It's called Young Justice League. I've linked it down below. We're going to bring you one of these newsletters about every 2 weeks, unless of course there's some major breaking news, and we'll bring you that right away. Until then, stay whelmed.